The moon hung low over the desolate fields of Eldridge County, casting an eerie glow on the land where silence reigned supreme. It was a night like any other, until the moment the animals erupted into a frenzied dash, racing across the fields with a precision that defied the laws of nature. No sounds escaped their mouths, just a chilling spectacle of instinctual terror that sent shivers down the spines of those who witnessed it. As the earth trembled beneath their hooves, an inexplicable force seemed to pulse through the air, vibrating with an energy that felt both ancient and alien. The winds shifted, carrying whispers of something unseen, something that lurked just beyond the edge of perception, waiting to be discovered. The very crops beneath their feet began to bend and twist, forming geometric patterns that hinted at a message from the cosmos, as if the land itself was evolving right before their eyes. In the heart of the night, a sense of impending doom loomed, a question that clawed at the minds of the witnesses. What had triggered this mass exodus, and what dark secret lay hidden in the depths of the fields, waiting to be unearthed? The moon hung low over the desolate fields of Eldridge County, casting an eerie glow on the land where silence reigned supreme. It was a night like any other, until the moment the animals erupted into a frenzied dash, racing across the fields with a precision that defied the laws of nature. No sounds escaped their mouths, just a chilling spectacle of instinctual terror that sent shivers down the spines of those who witnessed it. As the earth trembled beneath their hooves, an inexplicable force seemed to pulse through the air, vibrating with an energy that felt both ancient and alien. The wind shifted, carrying whispers of something unseen, something that lurked just beyond the edge of perception, waiting to be discovered. The very crops beneath their feet began to bend and twist, forming geometric patterns that hinted at a message from the cosmos, as if the land itself was evolving right before their eyes. It began as a quiet evening in Eldridge County, the stars twinkling like tiny candles in the vast expanse of the sky. The only sound was the soft rustle of the cornstalks swaying gently in the breeze, a lullaby that had lulled the entire countryside into a false sense of security. The night was thick with the scent of damp earth and the distant aroma of hay, a comforting reminder of the hard work that had gone into nurturing these fields. Farmhouses stood solemnly, their windows reflecting the ghostly light of the moon, while the dirt roads wound through the farmland like veins through an ancient creature, pulsing with life. But then, without warning, the stillness shattered. It started with a low rumble, a sound that seemed to emanate from the very ground itself. Cows in the nearby pasture froze, their large eyes wide with primal fear, and then, as if compelled by an unseen force, they bolted. Their hooves pounded against the earth, a soundless stampede that defied all rational explanation, a surreal dance that felt choreographed by something beyond comprehension. The sheep followed suit, bleating in silent panic, their woolly bodies weaving through the fields with a frantic urgency that echoed the terror in the hearts of those watching. The witnesses, a handful of farmers who had gathered for a late-night meeting at the old barn, stood frozen, their breath caught in their throats. Each man and woman felt the weight of an ancient fear creeping back into their bones, a fear that had been buried under years of mundane routine. They exchanged glances, their eyes reflecting a mixture of disbelief and dread as they tried to make sense of the chaotic scene unfurling before them. "What in God's name is happening?" whispered Clara, a long-time resident with a weathered face, her voice barely breaking the stillness. The question hung in the air, thick with tension, as they all shared the same unsettling thought. What unseen force could provoke such a reaction? As they strained their ears, they noticed the silence enveloping the chaos, a silence so profound it felt like an entity unto itself. No sounds of hooves striking the ground, no cries of bewilderment from the animals, nothing but a heavy, oppressive quiet that made the hairs on the back of their necks stand on end. The wind shifted again, strong and cold, carrying with it an odd metallic scent that made their stomachs churn. It was a smell they couldn't quite place, something that felt otherworldly, as if the very air was charged with an energy that made their skin prickle. The crops began to bend, not from the wind, but as if they were responding to a silent command. The corn stalks twisted into intricate patterns, spirals and angles forming shapes that resembled ancient symbols. They glowed faintly under the moonlight, casting strange shadows that danced across the ground, mesmerizing and terrifying in equal measure. The land seemed alive, pulsating with a rhythm that echoed the frantic heartbeats of the witnesses, a primal connection to something vast and unknowable. "Look," shouted Tom, pointing toward the horizon where a faint light began to rise. It flickered like a distant star, before coalescing into a beam that shot up into the night sky, illuminating the surrounding fields in a ghostly glow. The light shimmered, casting long shadows that twisted and turned, as if the very essence of the land was being pulled into the air. The farmers instinctively stepped back, the thrill of fear coursing through them. Their instinct screamed for them to flee, to abandon reason and run from the unfathomable mystery unfolding before their eyes. Yet, they stood transfixed, caught between the need to understand and the instinct to survive. What was this phenomenon? Was it a warning, a message, or something entirely beyond their comprehension? As the animals continued their frantic escape, the air thickened with an urgency that pressed against their chests. The vibrations deepened, resonating through the ground and into their bones. In those moments, they felt connected to something ancient, a force that had witnessed the birth of the land itself. It felt as if the very fabric of time was fraying, revealing glimpses of truths long forgotten. What had triggered this mass exodus? The question echoed through their minds, a haunting refrain that intensified the fear coursing through their veins. The dark secret hidden within the depths of the fields called out to them, pulling at their curiosity even as it threatened to consume them whole. Would they dare to uncover the truth, or would they succumb to the overwhelming dread of the unknown? As the moon hung overhead, observing the chaos below, the stage was set for a night that would forever alter the course of their lives. Something stirred in Eldridge County, a mystery that awaited revelation, a dance of shadows in the fields that whispered promises of cosmic secrets yet to be unveiled. The night settled heavily over Eldridge County, a blanket of darkness that seemed to muffle even the most timid sounds. The only light came from the pale moon, casting an ethereal glow over the fields that rippled like an ocean under the gentle caress of the wind. It was a silence that felt almost sacred, yet it was tinged with an unsettling undercurrent, a vibration that thrummed through the very soil beneath their feet. As the witnesses stood frozen, their breaths shallow and quick, the air around them grew dense with anticipation. The scent of moist earth mingled with something metallic, a sharp tang that seemed to electrify the atmosphere, making their skin prickle. Each gust of wind carried whispers, soft and indistinct, weaving tales of ancient secrets hidden deep within the land. It felt as though the night itself was alive, watching them with an inscrutable gaze, as if it held the answers to questions they had yet to form. The dirt road that wound through the fields appeared more like a ribbon of uncertainty, stretching endlessly into the abyss of the night. The distant silhouette of the barn loomed behind them, a stoic sentinel standing guard over the unfolding mystery. Its weathered wood creaked softly, an echo of long-forgotten stories, while the shadows danced playfully against its facade, mocking the fear that gripped the hearts of the farmers. Suddenly, a rustle in the nearby brush sent a shiver down their spines. The faint sound of hooves pounding against the ground reached their ears, the panicked retreat of livestock echoing the turmoil within. The animals, with their primal instincts, sensed the disturbance before the humans could even comprehend it. They bolted in all directions, their frantic cries piercing the night, a chorus of confusion that mirrored the chaos in the farmers' minds. "Did you hear that?" whispered Sarah, her voice trembling as she clutched Tom's arm. The weight of her fear hung in the air, a tangible force that seemed to pull them deeper into the abyss of uncertainty. Tom nodded, his eyes scanning the darkness, searching for the source of the disturbance that felt both near and impossibly distant. The light that had first captured their attention flickered again, now pulsing like a heartbeat, a rhythmic thrum that resonated through their souls. It illuminated the fields, revealing geometric patterns that seemed to pulse and shift beneath the surface, as if the earth itself was drawing breath. Shapes began to take form, spirals and circles intricately woven into the fabric of the earth, whispering of cosmic connections that defied earthly logic. "Look at the fields," Tom murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. The patterns seemed to glow with an inner light, casting an eerie luminescence that was at once beautiful and horrifying. It was as if the soil had been inscribed with a language lost to time, a message from a civilization that had long since faded into obscurity. The wind shifted again, carrying with it a low hum that reverberated through the air, an ancient song that tugged at the edges of their consciousness. It was a sound that felt like a warning, a call to remember, to awaken something that had lain dormant for centuries. The farmers exchanged glances, a shared understanding flashing between them, a fear of the unknown mingling with an insatiable curiosity. "What if it's a sign?" Sarah pondered aloud, her voice trembling with a mixture of dread and fascination. "What if it's something beyond us?" Tom's eyes widened, his heart racing as he contemplated the implications. Or something that wants to be found. The thought lingered, a haunting echo that seemed to resonate within the very core of their beings. As the light flickered again, casting shadows that danced like phantoms across the landscape, the tension grew unbearable. The air thickened, pressing against their chests, stifling their breaths as they stood on the precipice of discovery. The vibrations seemed to pulse through the ground, a heartbeat of the land itself, echoing the turmoil within each of them. The sensation was intoxicating, a heady mix of fear and exhilaration that left them teetering on the edge of sanity. Then, without warning, the light vanished, plunging the fields into darkness. The sudden absence of illumination felt like a loss, a void that left them grasping for the remnants of what they had just witnessed. The silence that followed was deafening, a heavy shroud that enveloped them, pressing down like a weight against their chests. "Did it just disappear?" Sarah stammered, her heart racing. The darkness was now an oppressive force, wrapping around them like a serpent, squeezing the breath from their lungs. The night had reclaimed its dominion, leaving them standing in the haunting aftermath of something inexplicable. But the vibrations remained, thrumming through the air, a silent promise that the mystery was far from over. Beneath their feet, the earth seemed to pulse with a life of its own, a rhythm that echoed their own anxious hearts. They were no longer just witnesses. They were participants in something vast and unknowable, caught in a web of cosmic threads that bound them to the very essence of the land. As they stood in the enveloping darkness, hearts pounding and breaths shallow, the realization settled over them like a thick fog. The night would not let them go easily. Something had awakened, something that would unfold in ways they could scarcely begin to comprehend. And as they braced themselves against the encroaching shadows, they understood that the true horror lay not in the unknown, but in the journey that lay ahead. A journey that would unravel the very fabric of their understanding, drawing them closer to the heart of the mystery that pulsed beneath the soil of Eldridge County. The air thickened, pressing against their chests, stifling their breaths as they stood on the precipice of discovery. The vibrations seemed to pulse through the ground, a heartbeat of the land itself, echoing the turmoil within each of them. The sensation was intoxicating, a heady mix of fear and exhilaration that left them teetering on the edge of sanity. Then, without warning, the light vanished, plunging the fields into darkness. The sudden absence of illumination felt like a loss, a void that left them grasping for the remnants of what they had just witnessed. The silence that followed was deafening, a heavy shroud that enveloped them, pressing down like a weight against their chests. Did it just disappear? Sarah stammered, her heart racing. The darkness was now an oppressive force, wrapping around them like a serpent, squeezing the breath from their lungs. The night had reclaimed its dominion, leaving them standing in the haunting aftermath of something inexplicable. But the vibrations remained, thrumming through the air, a silent promise that the mystery was far from over. Beneath their feet, the earth seemed to pulse with a life of its own, a rhythm that echoed their own anxious hearts. They were no longer just witnesses. They were participants in something vast and unknowable, caught in a web of cosmic threads that bound them to the very essence of the land. As they stood in the enveloping darkness, hearts pounding and breaths shallow, the realization settled over them like a thick fog. The night would not let them go easily. Something had awakened, something that would unfold in ways they could scarcely begin to comprehend. And as they braced themselves against the encroaching shadows, they understood that the true horror lay not in the unknown, but in the journey that lay ahead. A journey that would unravel the very fabric of their understanding, drawing them closer to the heart of the mystery that pulsed beneath the soil of Eldridge County. An unsettling sensation wrapped around them, as if the very darkness had eyes, watching, waiting. The once familiar sounds of the countryside, the rustle of leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, the soft rustling of nocturnal creatures had faded into an eerie stillness. It was as if the world had held its breath, suspended in a moment that felt both timeless and fleeting. "Listen," Jake said, his voice barely above a whisper, as if the act of speaking might shatter the delicate veil of silence. The vibrations that had once been a comforting rhythm now morphed into a low, throbbing hum, an undercurrent that pulsed through the very fabric of the night. It was a sound that resonated deep within their bones, igniting something primal and instinctual, urging them to flee, yet holding them captive in a spellbinding grip. The air shifted, carrying with it a metallic tang that stung their nostrils. It was an odor they could not place, foreign and unsettling, as if the very particles of the atmosphere were charged with an energy that defied explanation. The hairs on the back of their necks stood at attention, a visceral reaction to an unseen force that thrummed just beyond their perception. "What if we shouldn't be here?" Sarah's voice trembled, her eyes wide with the reflection of fear and uncertainty. Each word hung in the air, a fragile thread that connected them to reality, yet felt tenuous, as if it might snap at any moment. Jake shook his head, his resolve wavering. "We can't leave now, not after what we saw." He turned his gaze toward the darkness that stretched out before them, the fields now a vast sea of black, concealing whatever had stirred beneath the surface. "We have to find out what it was." As if in response, a low rumble echoed through the night, sending a shiver racing down their spines. It was not a sound made by nature, nor by any creature they could fathom. It was something deeper, more profound, as if the earth itself was speaking in a language they could not understand. The vibrations intensified, a crescendo that reverberated through the ground, shaking the very core of their beings. Suddenly, a flicker of light erupted in the distance, illuminating the field in a ghostly glow. It was not the same bright brilliance they had witnessed before, but rather a dim, pulsating light that seemed to beckon them closer. Shadows danced across the landscape, weaving in and out of existence, creating an illusion that was both mesmerizing and terrifying. Over there, Sarah pointed, her voice rising in urgency. The light flickered again, casting elongated shapes that twisted and turned, as if alive. They could feel the pull of it, an undeniable invitation that stirred a mix of curiosity and dread within them. As they began to move towards the light, the air thickened further, wrapping around them like a shroud. Each step felt labored, as if the very ground was resisting their advance. The whispers of the night grew louder, a cacophony of unintelligible sounds that swirled around them, weaving a narrative of the unknown that sent pangs of fear spiraling through their minds. Jake glanced back, the darkness behind them pressing in with an unsettling insistence. "What if it's a trap?" he murmured, grappling with the conflicting emotions that churned within him. Yet the light continued to pulsate, a siren call that drowned out his rational thoughts. The closer they drew to the source of illumination, the more vivid the sensations became. The ground beneath their feet was no longer just earth. It felt alive, thrumming with energy, vibrating in harmony with their racing hearts. They could hear it now, an almost musical hum that resonated with a frequency that seemed to transcend the mundane world they had known. And then, just as they reached the edge of the light, it extinguished, plunging them back into darkness. The sudden absence was a visceral shock, a thud of silence that echoed in their ears. They stood frozen, the weight of the night bearing down on them once more, hearts pounding in tandem with the silent pulse of the land. Where did it go? Sarah's voice trembled, panic creeping in as she turned in circles, searching for the elusive light that had drawn them in. A chilling breeze swept through the field, carrying with it the metallic scent that had permeated the air before. In that moment, they felt it, a presence, something lurking just beyond the veil of visibility. It was not a creature, nor a being, but rather an essence, a consciousness that watched from the shadows, waiting for them to make the next move. The realization settled heavily upon them. The true horror was not just what lay ahead, but the knowledge that they had awakened something ancient, something that thrived in the dark, eager to reveal its secrets, yet shrouded in the depths of the unknown. They were no longer mere spectators. They had become unwitting players in a cosmic drama, one that threatened to unravel their very understanding of reality itself. As they stood on the precipice of revelation, the night loomed large, a tapestry of fear and mystery that promised to engulf them whole. The darkness enveloped them like a thick fog, oppressive and suffocating, yet charged with an electric anticipation. Sarah's breath hitched in her throat as her eyes darted around the field, searching for a sign of the light that had vanished so abruptly. The world around them was a canvas painted in muted shades of black and gray, the familiar contours of the farmland now indistinguishable in the absence of illumination. The stars above flickered like distant memories, their glow dimmed by the overwhelming shadow that had descended upon the landscape. The night seemed to breathe, each gust of wind a whisper of secrets long forgotten. It carried with it the scent of damp earth, mingled with something metallic, sharp, and foreign. As if the very soil was infused with an ancient energy, thrumming beneath their feet, vibrating in a rhythm that echoed the pounding of their hearts. The sensation was unnerving. It was as though the ground itself was alive, a sentinel that bore witness to their intrusion into its sacred realm. "Do you hear that?" Mark's voice cut through the stillness, barely above a whisper. There was a tremor in his words, a mixture of fear and wonder that made the hairs on the back of Sarah's neck stand on end. She strained to listen, and there it was, a low, resonant hum that seemed to pulse from the depths of the earth. It was not just a sound, but a vibration that coursed through the air, reverberating in her chest, a haunting melody that seemed to call out to them, drawing them deeper into the night. The hum shifted, morphing into something more complex, layered with tones that danced around each other like wisps of smoke. It felt alive, sentient, and as they stood there, It was as if the very essence of the field was speaking to them. The sensation was intoxicating yet terrifying, an invitation and a warning entwined in one. The air grew thick with tension as they exchanged glances, a silent agreement hanging between them. They could not turn back now. Suddenly, without warning, the ground shuddered beneath them, a tremor so subtle yet so profound that it sent a jolt of adrenaline racing through Sarah's veins. She stumbled slightly, steadied by Mark, who looked equally startled. They both sensed it, the unmistakable feeling of something shifting just beneath the surface, as if the earth itself was awakening from a long slumber. The hum intensified, pulsating in time with their racing hearts. And in that moment of heightened awareness, they felt the presence again, a weighty consciousness that loomed just outside their line of sight, observing, waiting. Then, without any transition, the light returned, not as a beacon but as an ephemeral glow, a soft luminescence that bathed the field in an otherworldly hue. It flickered like a candle caught in a breeze, casting ghostly shadows that danced along the edges of their vision. They blinked, momentarily blinded by the brilliance, and when their eyes adjusted, they found themselves standing before a massive geometric formation laid out in the very heart of the field. The pattern was astonishing, a perfect circle surrounded by intricate designs that spiraled outward, each line precise and deliberate, as if crafted by hands that were not of this world. The plants within the circle lay flattened, bent at angles that defied natural explanation, yet they were unbroken, untouched by any blade or claw. Sarah felt her breath quicken, a knot of fear and awe tightening in her chest. The air crackled with an unspoken energy, a palpable tension that made her skin prickle. "Is this a crop circle?" Mark's voice was barely a murmur, almost lost in the cacophony of their surrounding thoughts. They stepped closer, the grass yielding softly beneath their feet, their eyes wide with disbelief. The intricate patterns seemed to pulse with their own life force, shimmering as if imbued with an otherworldly glow. The oppressive silence that enveloped them was now punctuated by the hum, a melodic vibration that seemed to rise and fall in waves, resonating through their very being. Sarah instinctively reached out, her fingers brushing against the smooth surface of the flattened crops, and a jolt of energy coursed through her. It was electric and alive, a connection that transcended the physical realm. For a fleeting moment, she felt as though she understood the language of the universe, the secrets of time and space woven into the fabric of the earth beneath her fingertips. Yet that understanding was fleeting, drowned out by an overwhelming sense of dread. Just as quickly as it had appeared, the light began to flicker again, dimming with a disquieting urgency. The hum shifted, morphing into discordant tones that echoed like a warning bell. Panic surged within her, and she stepped back, heart racing as the realization washed over her. They had crossed a threshold, and the very fabric of reality felt as if it were unraveling. A chilling breeze swept through the field, carrying with it a sense of foreboding. The shadows around them deepened, and for the first time, the sensation of being watched became palpable. They were no longer mere observers of this phenomenon. They were intruders in a sacred space, and the very essence of the night seemed to bristle with disapproval. The hum faded into silence, leaving only the sound of their quickening breaths and the distant rustle of leaves. "What do we do now?" Sarah's voice trembled, laced with uncertainty. Mark's eyes darted around, the weight of the unknown pressing down on him. They were caught between the allure of the mystery before them and the instinctual urge to flee, to escape the oppressive presence that seemed to close in around them. But in that moment, a sound broke the silence, a low, metallic thrum, unlike anything they had heard before. It was as if the very air was alive with vibrations, resonating with a frequency that was both beautiful and terrifying. The ground beneath them shuddered once more, and the light flickered back into existence, brighter than before, illuminating the intricate patterns in a surreal glow. The formation pulsed rhythmically, as if responding to the thrum, and a wave of energy washed over them, drawing them back toward its center. The line between fear and curiosity blurred, and despite the danger that loomed, they felt an irresistible pull to step closer, to witness what lay at the heart of the phenomenon. They were entwined in a cosmic dance of fate, and as they moved forward, the night held its breath, waiting for the next act to unfold. The metallic thrum pulsed through the air like a heartbeat, a sound that resonated deep within their chests. Each beat sent ripples of energy into the ground, causing the very earth beneath their feet to tremble with an unexplainable urgency. As Sarah and Mark inched closer to the formation, the light danced around them, casting elongated shadows that seemed to stretch and recoil as if alive. The atmosphere thickened with a palpable tension, wrapping around them like a shroud. What is this?" Sarah whispered, her voice barely breaking through the hum of the energy that enveloped them. The words hung in the air, unanswered and heavy, echoing the confusion and dread that settled in the pit of their stomachs. The formation before them appeared to be a complex geometric pattern, intricate and mesmerizing, a language of shapes that spoke of something ancient, something beyond their comprehension. Mark's gaze fell upon the delicate curves and sharp angles, a bizarre symmetry that felt both inviting and forbidding. He had seen crop circles before, but this was different. This was not merely a design etched into the earth. It was an invitation and an accusation, a testament to an intelligence that transcended human understanding. The patterns seemed to pulse, each beat resonating with the vibrations in the air, as if they were alive, breathing in synchrony with the night. He felt a sudden chill creep up his spine, a sensation that was more than just the cool night air. It was a warning. The hushed whispers of the wind carried 1,000 unspoken fears, wrapping around them like a tightening noose. They were not alone. The realization settled heavily in the atmosphere, weaving through the shadows that danced just beyond the edges of their vision. As the light flickered, revealing the formation in stark clarity, Mark noticed something else, a faint glow emanating from within the geometric patterns. It pulsed in time with the thrum, a rhythm that spoke of life, of energy, of something otherworldly. The closer they got, the more they could feel it, a weight pressing down on them, urging them to retreat even as their curiosity propelled them forward. "Do you feel that?" Sarah asked, her voice barely a whisper, fear threading through her words. Mark nodded, the unease settling deeper within him. It was as if the very air had thickened, turning electric with a tension that made it difficult to breathe. The animals in the surrounding fields had grown eerily silent, their absence amplifying the strangeness of the moment. The distant rustle of leaves faded into an unsettling quiet, replaced by the rhythmic thrum that now felt like the very heartbeat of the earth itself. Every instinct screamed at them to leave, yet they were tethered by an unseen force, drawn closer to the pulsating light that beckoned them like a moth to a flame. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught Mark's eye, an almost imperceptible shift at the edge of the formation. He turned sharply, body tense as the shadows seemed to stretch and writhe in the dim light. A chill ran down his spine, igniting a primal fear that clawed at his insides. Was there something in the darkness, something watching, lurking just beyond their sight? "Mark." Sarah's voice was barely audible, trembling as she took a step back, the fear clouding her features. "I don't think we should be here." Her eyes darted around, searching for an escape, but the pull of the formation was strong, an invisible thread tugging them closer to the heart of the mystery. Before he could respond, the ground beneath them shuddered violently, as if the earth itself was protesting their presence. The metallic thrum escalated into a cacophony of sound that reverberated through the field, drowning out their thoughts. Panic surged anew, and Mark felt himself teetering on the edge of decision. Should they flee, or should they confront the unknown that awaited them? As the light dimmed and darkened again, the geometric patterns shifted, morphing into shapes that seemed to defy logic. They were not just lines and curves, they were messages, beckoning them to decipher the enigma before them. A sense of urgency filled the air as the pulsating light reached an almost blinding intensity, and in that moment, time seemed to freeze. Then, as if the universe held its breath, a low rumble echoed from deep within the earth, a sound that vibrated through their very bones. The formation seemed to respond, the patterns shifting and realigning, revealing something that had remained hidden until now. An opening, a doorway. The air became charged, and the sensation of being watched intensified, wrapping around them like a dark cloak. "Mark, we need to go." Sarah's voice cracked, her fear palpable. But as she reached for his hand, he felt rooted to the spot, entranced by the unfolding spectacle. The light enveloped them, a cocoon of brilliance that felt both protective and ominous. In that moment of uncertainty, their eyes met, and within Sarah's gaze, he could see the reflection of his own fear and fascination. They were teetering on the precipice of understanding, caught between the allure of the unknown and the primal instinct to run. The night thrummed with anticipation, the air electric with possibilities, as they stood at the edge of something monumental, an awakening that would change everything. But what awaited them beyond the threshold remained a tantalizing secret, cloaked in shadows and silence. The answers they sought danced just out of reach, hidden behind the veil of the inexplicable. And as they stood there, caught in a web of cosmic tension, the night whispered its mysteries, leaving them on the brink of revelation, yet shrouded in uncertainty. The dawn broke harshly over the rural landscape, casting an unsettling light upon the field where the inexplicable had transpired. Mark stood at the edge of the formation, his breath shallow, as if the air itself had thickened overnight. The geometric patterns sprawled before him, a chaotic yet mesmerizing arrangement of bent stalks and crushed earth, telling a story that he was not sure he was ready to comprehend. The sun struggled to penetrate the shroud of unease that hung in the air. It was a fragile warmth that felt alien against the chill, still clinging to the memories of that night. Mark stepped cautiously into the formation, the ground beneath him silent, as though it had chosen to forget the night's events. Each footfall disturbed the delicate balance of the patterns, reverberating with a sound that seemed to echo back from some distant realm, a lingering resonance that sent shivers up his spine. "Look at this, Mark." Sarah's voice broke through the thick silence, a tremor of disbelief lacing her words as she crouched beside a particularly intricate section of the design. The sunlight caught the edges of the bent stalks, revealing a metallic sheen that had not been visible in the dim light of the previous night. It was as if the plants had absorbed something otherworldly, something that defied explanation. Mark approached her, the scent of damp earth and something metallic mingling in the morning air. He knelt beside Sarah, his heart racing as he traced the lines with his fingers. They were impossibly smooth, the plants bent but not broken, as if they had been molded by unseen hands. It was a paradox of nature, a silent scream of an event that had unfolded just hours before. "Do you hear that?" Sarah whispered, her eyes darting around the field. Mark paused, straining to catch the sound that had begun to thrum in the distance. It was a low, pulsating vibration that seemed to resonate with the very core of the earth. The noise was not just heard, it was felt deep within his bones, reverberating through him like a heartbeat that was not his own. The vibrations intensified, causing the hairs on his arms to stand on end. It was a sound that beckoned, a siren call that urged him to dive deeper into the mystery of the formation. Was it a warning? A promise? Mark's mind raced, torn between the urge to flee and the need to uncover the truth hidden in the geometry before him. As they examined the patterns, the air thickened with a palpable tension. Mark felt the weight of something vast and ancient pressing in on them, as if the very fabric of reality was shifting. The patterns were more than mere shapes. They were a language, an invitation to decipher a cosmic puzzle that had been left for them, if they dared to understand. "Mark, we shouldn't be here." Sarah's voice trembled, her eyes wide with fear. "What if something comes back?" The question hung in the air, heavy with the unspoken dread that had woven itself into the fabric of their experience. Mark turned to her, his heart aching with the knowledge that they were already entangled in something far beyond their comprehension. "Maybe this is why we were drawn here," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were at the center of something monumental, a convergence of paths that had led them to this very moment. The patterns seemed to pulse with a life of their own, inviting them to step closer, to delve into the unknown. Suddenly, a sharp crack sliced through the air, as if a branch had snapped in the distance. They both turned, adrenaline surging through their veins. The sound was followed by a low, vibrating hum that seemed to emanate from the formation itself, intensifying with each passing second. It was a call to action, a challenge that sent chills racing down Mark's spine. "Let's get out of here," Sarah urged, her voice edged with panic. But Mark felt rooted to the spot, a part of him yearning to uncover the truth that lay just beyond their grasp. He could sense the weight of the unseen presence from the night before, hovering just at the periphery of their awareness, watching, waiting. As if in response to their fear, the air grew colder, the light dimming as shadows stretched across the field. The geometric patterns began to shimmer, reflecting a myriad of colors that danced in the gathering gloom. Mark's breath hitched as he realized the patterns were not merely shapes. They were alive, pulsating with an energy that felt both terrifying and exhilarating. "Mark, please," Sarah pleaded, her voice breaking through the haze of his thoughts. He turned to her, and in that moment, the realization hit him. This was not just about understanding the mystery, it was about confronting the darkness that had gathered around them. He took a deep breath, grounding himself in the moment, feeling the vibrations continue to echo through the earth beneath him. "We need to face this," he said firmly, his resolve strengthening. "Whatever this is, we can't turn our backs on it." With that, they stepped deeper into the formation, the world around them fading into a distant memory. The patterns enveloped them, drawing them into an intricate tapestry of light and shadow, a cosmic riddle waiting to be unraveled. As they ventured forth, the vibrations grew stronger, resonating with an intensity that felt like the very heartbeat of the universe itself, urging them to discover what lay beyond the veil of the known. In that moment, they were not just witnesses, they were participants in a grand design, a dance of energies that spanned the cosmos. And as they moved deeper into the heart of the mystery, the air hummed with the promise of revelation, an awakening that would change everything they thought they understood about the world and about themselves. The air around them thickened, a palpable tension hanging like a curtain, muffling the familiar sounds of the night. The only noise was the soft, rhythmic pulse emanating from the geometric patterns beneath their feet, an echoing heartbeat that seemed to synchronize with their own. Mark's heart raced, each thump a reminder of the fragile line between normalcy and the unknown. Sarah, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and determination, stepped closer to him, her hand gripping his tightly. As they crossed the threshold of the formation, the ground beneath them felt alive, thrumming with an energy that coursed through their bodies like electricity. The shimmering patterns pulsed with hues of deep violet and azure, casting an ethereal glow that illuminated their surroundings in a surreal light. It felt as if they had stepped into another realm, where the laws of nature bent and twisted in ways they could scarcely comprehend. "Can you feel that?" Mark whispered, his voice barely breaking the silence that enveloped them. "Feel what?" Sarah replied, her gaze darting around, searching for signs of what lurked in the shadows. "The energy. It's like it's speaking to us." Mark's words hung in the air, heavy with implication. It was as if the very essence of the cosmos was unfurling before them, revealing layers of existence that had long remained hidden. He could sense the vibrations shifting, morphing into a language of their own, a complex symphony resonating through the fabric of the night. But as they ventured deeper, the beauty of the patterns began to twist into something darker. The pulsating lights flickered erratically, casting distorted shadows that danced menacingly across the field. The air grew colder still, a bone-chilling draft whispering through the rows of crops that bordered the formation. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back, to retreat to the safety of the familiar. Yet, a deeper pull urged him forward, beckoning him to confront the enigma that lay ahead. Suddenly, a low hum emerged from the depths of the formation, reverberating through the soil and resonating within their chests. It was a sound unlike anything they had ever heard, a haunting melody woven with the echoes of forgotten memories and unspoken fears. The pitch rose and fell, creating an eerie harmony that filled the space around them, drawing them into its depths. Mark glanced at Sarah, her expression a mix of awe and dread. "What is that?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know," he admitted, a knot tightening in his stomach. "But it feels important." As if in response to his admission, the shimmering patterns shifted once more, revealing a new design within the kaleidoscope of colors. It was a symbol, intricate and ancient, the likes of which Mark had only seen in old books and whispered legends. A chill ran down his spine, the realization dawning that they were standing on sacred ground, a place where the veil between realms was thin, where the past and present collided in a cosmic dance. The hum intensified, wrapping around them like a living entity, and moments later, both of them froze, sensing a shift in the atmosphere. The shadows grew longer, stretching towards them as if drawn by an unseen force. A palpable weight settled over them, the sensation of being watched pressing heavily on their shoulders. Mark's breath quickened, his instincts screaming at him to run, but something deeper urged him to stand firm. "Mark!" Sarah's voice trembled, her grip tightening around his hand. Do you think we're alone here?" He hesitated, the question hanging in the air, heavy with dread. "I don't know," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper, "but I can't shake the feeling that something is here with us." Just then, a flash of light erupted from the center of the formation, blinding them momentarily. Mark blinked against the brightness, heart racing as he fought to regain his bearings. When his vision cleared, he saw the patterns shifting once again, swirling in a mesmerizing dance, as if responding to the energy that pulsed through the air. The light cast strange reflections on the ground, creating a tapestry of shadows that seemed to writhe and twist with a life of their own. "Look!" Sarah gasped, pointing towards the center where the light coalesced. It formed a luminous orb, pulsating like a heartbeat, casting a surreal glow that illuminated the darkness surrounding them. As they stepped closer, the hum crescendoed, filling their minds with a cacophony of visions, fleeting memories, faces of strangers, and glimpses of a world beyond their own. Mark's heart raced as he felt the presence surrounding them coalesce into something tangible, a force that was both terrifying and beautiful. "Mark, I can't do this," Sarah stammered, her voice a mixture of fear and resolve. "I want to go home." He turned to her, his heart aching at the fear in her eyes. "We can't leave yet. Not without understanding." But just as he spoke, the pulsating light flickered violently, casting the field into a darkness so deep it swallowed them whole. The rhythmic pulse transformed into a deafening roar, a cacophony of sound that vibrated through their bones, shaking them to the core. "Mark!" Sarah screamed, her voice swallowed by the chaos. And then, just like that, it stopped. Silence blanketed the field, a suffocating stillness that felt like a weight pressing down on them. The light faded, leaving only the dim outline of the geometric patterns etched against the night sky. In that silence, Mark felt something shift within him, a realization that the answers they sought were not just about the mysteries of the formation, but about the very nature of existence itself. As he turned to Sarah, ready to reassure her, he noticed something glinting on the ground. A small object, half buried in the soil. He knelt down, heart pounding, and picked it up. It was a simple pendant, an ancient symbol etched into its surface, a design that mirrored the patterns of the formation. But it was not the pendant itself that shocked him. It was the sensation that washed over him, an overwhelming sense of connection, as if the piece of metal held a fragment of the truth they had been seeking all along. The world around him faded, and for a fleeting moment he felt the weight of countless eyes upon him, an awareness that transcended time and space. "Mark, what did you find?" Sarah's voice broke through his reverie, the urgency in her tone snapping him back to reality. He turned to her, the pendant clutched tightly in his hand. I think this is just the beginning." And as they stood there, surrounded by the remnants of the cosmic mystery, Mark felt an unsettling truth settle in his gut. A truth that promised more questions than answers. A thread in the tapestry that was yet to be unraveled. The feeling that something was still watching lingered in the air as they turned to leave the field, the shadows stretching behind them as if reluctant to let go. The pendant felt warm against his skin, a beacon of the unknown. They walked away, but the world around them felt irrevocably changed, the echoes of the night still whispering secrets in the wind. And as they stepped into the darkness, the cosmic dance continued, an eternal rhythm pulsing through the universe, waiting for the next curious souls to uncover its mysteries.